Hello, I am Empress Elisheva, and you're listening to the New Age Apostle podcast. Yay! It's new series time. Today, we're picking up where we left off with our discussions of spiritual purpose. Last week, I diverted my attentions to a conversation about the Montgomery melee and some potential spiritual ramifications of that whole deal. So, if you're curious, I recommend that you check that out. I'll leave a link in the description box below for you if you're interested. Today, I want to continue our exploration of spiritual purpose with a new 3-part series I'm calling Trust and Divine Purpose. Today's episode is titled Trusting Your Purpose. Heavy emphasis on the word your, because ain't no purpose like the one you got. Y'all ready to get into this? I know I am. Let's go. Okay, vibe check segment on deck. Okay, so I'm actually feeling some kind of way because I made the mistake of doom scrolling on X, formerly known as Twitter, and it's looking like we're going to be experiencing another pandemic. COVID cases are rising across the globe, and the mainstream media is trotting out the same stories that I know are just going to be prepping the collective's consciousness for a return of those restrictions. This is not surprising, as I suspected this would happen again, and I'm not alone. A lot of people have suspected that this was going to happen again. I think even Alex Jones came out and made an announcement regarding some privileged information that he received from 2 different individuals employed by the federal government. So I'm not allowing myself to align with a fear frequency because at the end of the day, I either believe in all this you create your own reality stuff or I don't. All this means is I have to lean on spirit for my solutions. I have to trust my connection to source, and I must trust my path. And isn't that a wonderful segue into today's episode, which I am calling Trusting Your Purpose? You know, they say comparison is the thief of joy. And as it relates to discovering, standing in, and eventually living out your purpose, comparing your path to the path of others is one of the worst things that you can do. Our spiritual purpose is our life purpose. They are one and the same. You are a spiritual being having a human experience in this simulation, which you interface with via your physical vessels, okay? Everything that you do down here is spiritual because it proceeds from that premise. You, everyone who is listening to this, you are such a unique energy. If you devote yourself to expressing the fullness of who you are, how could you end up being a carbon copy of anyone else? Whatever uniqueness that you bring to life's endeavors will always be even just slightly different, just by virtue of your uniqueness. If you're the one doing it, a mistake that I believe we often make, even if we only make it silently and secretly within the confines of our own thoughts, is the mistake of estimating our value by comparing ourselves to others. We compare our parenting skills, our bodies, our homes, our talents and abilities, our choices. Do I need to go on? There seems to be something hardwired within us that makes us look outside ourselves, where we invariably find some quote unquote proof that we are lacking in some way. God, the goddess, the universe, the creator, the source of all things, whatever you wish to call it, he or she, I will say she, did not create you to be anyone else but you. You are to play the hand that you have been dealt and make the absolute most of it. The most of the gifts, talents, and intelligences unique to you. There truly ain't no purpose like the one that you've got. This is something I had to learn the hard way because I too am guilty of looking outside myself and then determining that perhaps I'm not good enough to even attempt something, or that I wouldn't be good at something, even if it had been repeatedly put on my heart to try my hand at it. One such example is how I had this tendency to doubt my ideas. Honestly, I still have to be careful about this inclination. I'd get inspired to do something that was brand new to me, and that I perhaps didn't see an example of out in the world. at the time that I had my stroke of imagination. And because I didn't see others doing this thing, whatever it was, I would doubt the viability of it. But sure enough, as soon as I'd abandon the idea, I'd see some other person expressing and following through on that very concept and reaping the benefits of doing so. As a side note, I do believe that spirit inspires us because it wants the opportunity to express particular things in the physical. And if we act upon that inspiration, we reap the benefits that are afforded to creatives in our society. However, when we ignore those promptings, that energy can and will just, up and choose another host, quote unquote. And honestly, I feel that that explains why we see those ideas crop up elsewhere after we've neglected to accept the gift that we were given. Now, as if it wasn't bad enough that I allowed fear and insecurities to stop me from acting on the blessed ideas that flowed to me continuously, just because I didn't see previous examples of it already in the quote unquote marketplace. When I would have an idea that I decided I wanted to actually act upon, it was like the universe tested me by immediately bringing into my sphere of awareness an example of someone actually doing the same damn thing. And instead of trusting and acting upon my intuition, because seeing it already out in the world was literally proof of concept, I'd lament the fact that it was already being done. I'd say, if other people are doing it, then why should I? What's special about me? And worse yet, I'd whine, they're going to think I'm copying. It was foolish. I know. I mean, it was damned if you do and damned if you don't. If I hadn't seen it in the marketplace, I doubted myself. And if I saw it in the marketplace, I doubted myself. This is how we hamstring ourselves when the universe is trying to put us on a path of our purpose. I had to remind myself that the existence of something in the current marketplace shouldn't deter me. In fact, it should embolden me further, because if they were having any level of success with it, so could I. So instead of worrying about what other folks were doing, I should have been focusing on what can I do that will be unique? How can I infuse whatever it is that I'm doing with that magic that is specific to me? How can I glorify the Creator by showing the world how wonderfully I was made? We'll get back to the podcast in a second, but I wanted to mention my ebook, 10 Vibration Raising Practices and Why They Work. I wrote this book because as I delved deeper into my spiritual journey, I realized that one of the most important things on this human journey is raising one's vibration. Understanding how to navigate this human life so that you align with and attain your highest vibrational reality, to me, is key. It's the key to mastering life, because the higher your vibration, the more magnetic you become for high vibrational experiences and spiritual guidance from beings of a higher frequency that want to help you on your journey. As the title suggests, my book details 10 practices that you can start doing today that will put you on the road to a higher vibration. Check out the link in the description box below, or search Elisheva Stellar, ELISHEVA Stellar, STELLAR, on Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com to purchase your copy today. Okay, back to today's topic. I'm going to quote the Bible here real quick because I find value in knowledge wherever it manifests, and there is a particular biblical allegory that comes to mind that I feel is worth sharing here. This story comes to mind because it's a cautionary tale on why you should keep your eyes on your own paper, worry about yourself, and focus on who you incarnated on this plane to be, and not anyone else. We all know the story of Moses and how he is credited with leading God's chosen people out of Egypt and out of bondage. Yet, as great as the mythos of Moses is, we must remember that he had siblings who were instrumental in that story of liberation as well. Aaron and Miriam were Moses' elder brother and sister, and when God chose Moses to deliver his verdict against Egypt and free the Israelites, he used his siblings too, though in lesser capacities. I wish to focus on Miriam, Moses' big sister, whose actions when Moses was a baby aided in his survival. According to the story as delineated in the book of Exodus, Joseph, the son of Jacob, that had been sold into slavery by his envious brothers, he went on to do wonderful things for Egypt when he interpreted the then Pharaoh's dreams and saved Egypt from famine. A new Pharaoh ascended to the throne after Joseph and all his brothers had died. And this king wasn't too fond of the Hebrews because he worried that they would grow too great in number and could potentially ally with Egypt's enemies. As a result, the fearful Pharaoh went out of his way to control the Israelite population, even going as far as ordering Hebrew midwives to murder all the newly born male children. And when that didn't work, he ordered every son born to the Hebrews to be thrown into the Nile. Into these circumstances, Moses was born to a woman of the tribe of Levi. Moses' mother was able to hide him for 3 months. And when she could no longer do this, she placed him in a basket and set it down the Nile in the hopes that he would be serendipitously found and allowed to live. His sister, Miriam, stayed close by as the basket floated down the Nile, and she watched over him. And when she saw that the basket was found by Pharaoh's daughter, she set it up so that Moses' mother, her mother, was retained to be the child's nursemaid. It was Miriam's quick thinking that allowed the child to have continued contact with his birth mother during those oh so precious early developmental years. And when Moses grew up, it was revealed that he was in fact a Hebrew. And, then the events then occurred that would see him leading his exiled people out of bondage, out of Egypt, and in search of the promised land. In the difficult journey in search of the land promised to them by God, Moses struggled with keeping his people happy. Constantly, they complained about the conditions they were living under, and their lack of faith was evident. There were challenges to Moses' leadership, and surprisingly, one such challenge came from his own flesh and blood. Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses for having married a Cushite woman, a black woman, but their attacks were perhaps more rooted in their jealousy of their little brother having an influential leadership role over the whole of the Hebrew people. In Numbers chapter 12, verse 2, we see Miriam and Aaron basically saying, hey, we're prophets too, you know. God has delivered messages to the kingdom of Israel through us as well. And instead of being satisfied with the role she already played in the liberation of her people, for she too was instrumental in saving the life of her younger brother, Israel's future deliverer, in her bid for more influence, she overstepped and eventually incurred the wrath of the Lord. Miriam didn't know how else the Lord was planning to use her, but in her jealousy and lack of faith in the divine plan, she lashed out and sowed division within her own family. For this, she was struck down with leprosy, which was only alleviated after Moses begged God to remove her affliction. So the story of Miriam exemplifies how in our own arrogance and finite mindedness, we can forget our own value and uniqueness in a bid to possess another person's blessing. Had Miriam trusted her own path and purpose, she wouldn't be out here trying to encroach on Moses. And isn't that how folks really act? When they are insecure in themselves because they need to do inner work to address their self-concept issues, but they haven't done so yet, they lash out at others by gossiping and talking shit and just being messy. So God calls Miriam and Aaron to the carpet and lays into them, basically saying, yeah, y'all are prophets, but when I talk to Moses, we talk face to face. Ain't no riddles, because Moses, he submits to my will completely and is the most faithful in all my house. Ain't no purpose like the one you got. And yeah, maybe when looking at your life and your achievements or lack thereof, you feel less than. But we all have a role in what plays out in the sacred dramas of earth. Everyone is a missing puzzle piece. And what you've come to this planet driven to share is likely your God-given gift that you're meant to assist humankind with, within your ability and your sphere of influence. That which is not yours might look like glory, but if it isn't meant to be your path, and you know when it is, then it's not meant to be your path. In the end, it's not about envying someone else's accolades. It's about being the best at whatever it is you came here to be. Some have come to shake things up on a massive scale, while others have come to make deep and sustained impacts in a smaller sphere of influence. Both are very needed. So whether you're an absolute mess of utter train wreck proportions, or you somehow make all the right decisions and your life does nothing but move smoothly, there's something your soul came here to experience. And you can't truly embody whatever that is if you're out here clamoring for a path you were never meant to walk. All right, bet. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, be sure to hit that like button. And while you're at it, subscribe. At present, this podcast only appears on the YouTube platform as well as YouTube Music, but I am actively exploring other podcast platforms. For now, since I'm a brand new channel, I would really appreciate your support. My goal is to help you, whether that's by exposing you to a new perspective or some new information that you hadn't considered. And I hope that I achieved that today. Until next time, as always, holla at your girl.